yourself and note down any questions or queries that you have. And I will take the question answer session at the end of the session. And I'm so delighted that all of you are here. And again, with a very warm welcome, I will start the session now. Give me a minute to share my screen. And when I share my screen, I would just ask for an update if you're able to see my screen, and one of you could just give me a heads up that yes, you're able to see my screen. That would be great. Just a second. Yeah. So as you all know, today we have gathered here for a session on design thinking. As we, yeah. So design thinking is a very upcoming process, and most of the companies, education institution, colleges are embracing it with great enthusiasm. So today I'm going to give you a very interesting input with regard to design thinking. I hope you're all ready. And just before you start the session, can I request all of you for 1 minute, take a minute to calm yourself so that you can bring back yourself to the session with focused concentration. So I give you a minute to close your eyes, breathe in and breathe out to increase your focus and concentration. During this minute, I would request you to focus on all the good things. Focus that you are here in the session to learn. Concentrate with each breath you take. You are welcoming all new learnings into your life. And with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's get back to the session. So before we start the session, I would just like to give you an update on the objectives that we would covering in the session. The first objective is to trace the historical development of design thinking. The next objective that we would cover is we would understand the advantages of implementing design thinking, why design thinking matters. Then we would explore in detail the process of design thinking. This is the most of the chunk that this session will consist of. We will also emphasize on the importance of design thinking in education, and I will illustrate some real world application of design thinking in education and in other spheres of life. So these are the objectives. I hope these objectives are all clear to you, and we move ahead. You've taken a note of the objectives, and now we move ahead with the session. Before I start telling you about the historical development of design thinking, let us first understand what is design thinking. Design thinking is basically a very creative approach to problem solving. It's in very simple language. If there is a problem that has multifaceted issues that concerns too many users and which is really very difficult to solve, which is very complex, design thinking is a process which you follow to understand the needs of various people that are concerned with the problem, and you come up with ideas. You make prototypes of your ideas that you have thought of to solve the problems and try to find solutions to create better products, better services, or better solutions. So basically, it's an approach to solve the problem by thinking out of the box. It's a process which tells you how to solve the problem. I hope this is clear with everyone. What is design thinking? Basically, it is just an approach for you to understand how a problem can be solved in a way that it provides viable, practical solutions to the users, and very importantly, keeps the users at the center of the problem. You understand the needs of the users to solve the problem. So most of the time what happens is when we're trying to solve something, we think about the problem ourselves and solve it. We do not put ourselves in the shoes of the user about whose problems we are trying to solve. So design thinking is a process that helps you do that, understand the pain points of the user to solve the problem in a more systematic and logical manner that will provide the user with the solutions that are viable. Now, to give you some context to the historical development of design thinking, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in the mid 20th century, there was a world that seemed very simple yet faced complex problems or challenges. In such a world where designers, engineers, thinkers were actually wrestling to solve the problems that were really difficult to solve. And in such a scenario came two pioneers, Horst Rittel and Melvin Weber. They set forth on a journey to understand these complex problems better. And they coined the term wicked problems. Now, wicked problems are those problems that are very intricate, that are intertwined, that are seemingly impossible to solve. Some problems which are very complex and we think that there is no solution to it, those problems are called as wicked problems. Now, these problems can be like urban planning, how to solve poverty, environmental sustainability, and there were no clear boundaries to such problems, and there were too many stakeholders, there were too many users for which these problems needed to be solved. And there were diverse perspectives. Some people were saying solve the poverty problem like this, others were saying no, this is not the way to solve it, this is the way to solve it. So there were multiple perspectives going on. So these people thought that the best way to solve a problem is by understanding the design thinking. And that is the time they came up with this term, which combined empathy, creativity, and collaboration together to solve what they wanted to solve. And fast forward to 1990s, a design firm called IDEO was founded by David Kelly, and he recognized the potential to bridge the gap between the human needs and the innovative solutions to the problems which these two gentlemen had called as wicked problems. And that approach was called as design thinking. So as IDEOs, the company's reputation grew because design thinking was actually helping companies to solve the problems. Many companies like Apple embraced this approach to actually put iPhone. The term iPhone came into being only when the company Apple decided to follow the processes of design thinking to name their company as iPhone. And I am sure most of us resonate with this, where the I is actually very catching, and the clientele grew and the company grew as it is supposed to be. In 2004, David Kelly, he founded the D School. Now, the D School is the hub for innovation, collaboration, creativity, and he promoted design thinking to not to be limited only to the fields of design, engineering, etc. He wanted it to be spread to other fields because he understood the potential of design thinking, and he decided that it has to be it can be spread to other spheres like education, health, government, and beyond. So design thinking as a process empowered the individuals to become problem solvers, change makers, and most of all, empathetic uh, innovators. That is what design thinking history is all about. It started with a complex problem, and now it is used in all spheres of our lives, in all aspects. Why design thinking is so important? Why do you think these gentlemen thought about design thinking to be such an important thing a process, such an important process. Why does it matter? Well, design thinking provides a structured yet flexible approach. Most of the time when we do brainstorming within a team, all the ideas come and they go haywire. There is no structure given to it. And if there is a structure, then there is no flexibility that is given to the team to think about the processes of design, or to solve any problem. So design thinking provides a structured, because it is in stages, as you will see forward, and yet a flexible approach that encourages innovation. It encourages collaboration. It embraces experimentation. And most of all, we put ourselves in the shoes of those we design for. It is human centric. And we develop solutions that resonate deeply with the needs and aspirations of the users. And that is why design thinking is such a powerful tool to solve problems. That is why it matters, because it gives you a structure along with flexibility, and it is user centric, it is human centric. Now, the process. What is the process of design thinking? Now, design thinking is an approach to solve problems. We all know that, but it is a long process. It is a 5-stage process. The first process is to empathize. Now, when I say empathize, this is the first stage of design thinking. Here, in this stage, the goal is to gain a deep understanding of the needs and desires and challenges of the end users or stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it means all the people who are concerned with that particular issue. So in this particular stage, we understand what are the pain points of the users who are suffering from these problems. So we try to understand who are the users and what are their pain points in this particular stage, which is called as empathize. And this is the beginning or the first stage of design thinking. The second stage is define. Now we have empathized with the users of the problem that they are facing. We understand what is the problem, what are the issues that they are suffering with. But now we need to define what we want to solve. So if there is a problem, let's say there is a problem A, and that problem has 5 users, 5 different kind of users. Every user will have a different kind of a problem or an issue with it. You will understand it better when I explain it with an example in the next stage. So all these different issues that different stakeholders have, all those are gathered, they are synthesized, they are put together, they are documented and analyzed. And then we make a clear and a focused problem statement to solve the problem. This stage is called as defining. We define what we are trying to solve. We begin with an overarching problem, means a big problem, and then we narrow it down to the problem that we can solve. And in this stage, what we are doing is we are defining what we want to solve. The definition, what we want to solve, has to be cleared and focused. The third stage is the stage of ideation. Now, ideation, as you all know, is the stage where we all are bringing our ideas together. So in this stage, we are trying to bring all the different ideas that are there within the team to solve the problem. Now, in the team, there will be many people. All these people will be focusing on solving these problems. That means if there are 10 people in the design thinking team, then there will be 10 different perspectives. And these 10 different perspectives will bring 20, 30, 40 different ideas. So in this particular stage, all the ideas related to that problem are brainstormed on, they are talked about, and we eliminate a few, we build upon a few, we refine the ideas, and we narrow our idea. From all the ideas that we've got, we narrow it down to the ones which we think will help in solving the problem. Then comes stage 4. This is an important stage, which is the prototype. Now, what is the goal of this stage? We have the ideas in the third stage. Now, the goal in this stage is to make the tangible representation of the solution. Now, we may say, okay, for this particular problem, I want to make an app. Now, in this particular, in the fourth stage, that app will get its shape. You will make the app. So we do prototyping in stage 4. Whatever the ideas that we had, we give it a shape. We start working on them so that that idea can be, whatever we want to give a solution, that solution is viable. And then in the fifth stage, we present the solution to the user again. Remember, in the first stage, we took review users' feedback. So the fifth stage is also about taking feedback. The prototype that we have made, we present it to the user. The user will give the feedback, and there will be maybe 2 or 3 reiterations of the prototype that we have made. And then the prototype is given for final testing. Excuse me. After validation, the solution is presented to the user, and the process comes to an end. Sometimes this process can go in a circle. I will explain to you. Remember this thought that this process of design thinking can go in a circle. We will understand it later with the help of an example. So this is the basic process of design thinking. Let me make it more clear to you with the help of an example. Now on your screen, you may see a problem statement. The problem statement says, how might we optimize city public transportation? And there are various points that this problem statement talks about. It talks about there is a problem of accessibility, reliability, user experience, overcrowding, safety problems, and real-time service updates. So there are many problems. We all might have used public transportation in our cities, sometimes or the other, and we all must have faced with this problem. So if we have to, optimize the public transportation system so that the common man on the road doesn't face problems, and this particular problem of public transportation can be solved. So how do we do it? If we have to do it from the point of view of design thinking. So this is the overarching problem statement that we have. Now keep the statement in mind, because I will keep referring to the statement in the further slides. I'll give you a minute to read the statement to understand what it means. Now, the first stage, if you remember, was the stage where we empathized. So empathize was the first stage. Now, what happens in this first stage? So if we are talking of this statement, let's say we are talking of this statement where we want to make public transportation accessible. We want to make it more reliable for the people, that they get the transport whenever they want. We want that they should not experience overcrowding. We want that there should be safety. If these are the things we want, if this is the problem statement, then in the first step, we will research. Now, from where will we research? On internet, from various public transportation departments like railway, bus, train, aeroplanes. All these public transportation departments, they have their data, they have their ticket sale, they have their complaints. So we will go and research on these various portals about the existing data that is there. We will review the surveys if they have taken any surveys. We will read the reports on public transportation issues. And as a design thinker team, we will conduct our research. So that is the first step to understand what the problem is, or what is the current situation of public transportation system in my city. Let's say we are talking of Bangalore, and I want to understand that what is the public transportation situation of my city, Bangalore. So what will I do? I will go to the KSRTC office. I will understand how many buses are there, how many buses ply on which route, how the number of consumers, commuters who board the bus? Is there any sort of survey that they have conducted? Is there any sort of website where their complaints are registered? The ticket sale, everything I will research. As a team, we will research. The next step comes, because you understand that we are talking of empathizing. So this is our research. Now we need to know how the various stakeholders or the various users of public transport in Bangalore would feel. So if we have to understand that, we will need to interview diverse commuters. Now understand that public transport is not only used by office going people. They are used by tourists, they are used by students, they are used by homemakers, they are used by people who goes to office, they are used by people who have different mobility needs, they are used by women, they are used by men, they are used by children. So there are various stakeholders to this public transportation system in Bangalore, to buses if we are focusing only on that. So we will interview all these kinds of people, and we will also distribute survey questions, and we will try and collect as many quantitative data as we can, because then only we will understand what are the major pain points of people who are using public transportation in Bangalore. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand. We will only, if we only depend on research, we will never get to understand what is the real problem, real issues these people face. Then comes the third part of this empathizing stage, which is observation. Now, we have conducted research. We have gathered our information from various users by means of interview. We will conduct our own observation also. So what we do is, we will ride in the public transport as a team and try to understand the experience, observe the behavior and experiences of the commuters, such as overcrowding is there, or delays are happening, or what are the difficulties for the individual with difficulties. We will make our observations when we will travel in the public transport. Now, all of these data that we have collected from our research, from our user-centered data collection, from our observation, will be used to do empathy mapping. Now, we will bring all this data together and we will do empathy mapping. Now, there can be various activities to do empathy mapping, which I will be discussing in the next slide. And after we have understood, what are the various pain points of the user and what are their needs, then we will document the entire process, because this is the most important part of our thinking process. We will keep referring to this, because this is only going to tell us what were the problems and what are the solutions that we are looking for. As I told you, this stage, empathize stage, serves as the foundation for the entire design thinking process. It ensures that solutions are developed with a deep understanding of the people who will use them. Now, we do our research, we collect data. How do we collect data? By user interviews, by observation, by survey, and by questionnaires. Then we do empathy mapping. I told you that we will be discussing a few activities. Now, how do we do empathy mapping? Persona development. In a team, each member will take a role. I will become a tourist, the other person will become a student, the other person will become a person with the mobility access, difficulty, a fourth person will become a office going person, and then we will talk. We can have discussions among ourselves to understand what are the problems or what do we feel. Then we will do journey mapping, means we will go from one place to another to understand what exactly it is all about. We will immerse ourselves in the problems by doing role plays. We will while we are in discussion, we will actively listen to each other's points. We will be active listeners. Now understand what active listeners do. They listen. They understand what the problem is before they make their comment or before they respond. So we will actively listen to the problems. We will ask repeatedly why. If you're saying this, why? If you're saying that, why? And we will be doing all these activities with empathetic mindset, and we will create a wall where we will be noting down all the observations that we have made during the conduct of these activities. You may conduct 1, 2, 3, depending on the time you have and depending on the depth you want to get into of empathy mapping. After that, we collect and document the data. So this is what happens in stage 1. Now, stage 2, remember, is all about defining. We started with a big problem, which is trying to solve so many issues. But we may not be able to solve all the issues in one go. So now that we have understood what are the problems of the users, we would want to solve at least one pressure point, right? So we will, in this stage, what we are going to do, we are going to review all the insights that have been gathered during the empathize stage. During the first stage, all the insights that we have gathered, we will analyze it, review it, understand it. After we do that, we will identify what are the core challenges. For example, in this case, the core challenges can be accessibility issues, that whenever people are saying that whenever we want the auto or whenever we want the bus, the timings of the bus, we don't know. So I really don't know when to go and board the bus. The buses are overcrowded. There are safety concerns for women and we want need for real-time services. So we will identify the core challenges that we want to focus on. After that, we will prioritize. Now, which issue do you think you will be able to, as a team, you will be able to solve the best? Suppose you, out of these 5 or 6 core challenges that you have identified, you want to focus only on safety and overcrowding of passengers. So you have prioritized now that these are the 2 issues that I want to solve, as we want to solve as a team. And then you will formulate a specific problem statement. How might we provide safety to passengers traveling in public transport and avoid overcrowding? So that means now my problem is I'm concerned about safety and overcrowding. So I have specifically, very clearly told, defined my problem that I want to focus on. So these are the first 2 stages. So the defined state serves as critical transition from understanding the problem space to narrowing it down and setting the stage. Now, this has given you your base, and you will use this as base for your various ideation in the third stage. So we synthesize the data, we understand the point of view of the users, we define the user's need, we consider the constraints. So we may have a big, huge problem with 10 issues. We may not have time or we may not have resources to focus on all. So depending on that, we will have to try and solve only 1 or 2 issues. We will have to prioritize opportunities. And remember, this is not the time to find the solution. We are not thinking of solution. Oh, this problem cannot be solved. No. If you think that this is a problem and you want to prioritize, you can use it. We are not jumping to solutions right now at this stage. We are only thinking about the problem. And of course, when we are doing empathizing, when we are defining, there is a lot of collaboration. We are taking other people's perspectives. We are taking the perspective of the users. So there is a collaboration, and with everything, we finally craft the problem statement. Now comes the third stage, ideate. In this stage, sessions are held with diverse group of participants. Now there are many people in the design thinking team. There could be designers, there could be engineers, there could be transportation expert, commuters. We will have brainstorming sessions with them and within the team also to understand if this is the problem, how can we solve it? And we will explore various solutions, such as we will think of redesigning the bus routes, we will think of introducing new technologies for real-time updates, we will think of implementing safety measures or creating user-friendly apps for commuters. So there can be a number of solutions to all the problems that we had prioritized. At this stage, remember, we are focusing on quality. We are not focusing on quantity. So what we are doing is, we are focusing on quantity and not over quality. We want hundreds of ideas to pour in. The goal is to have as many ideas to work with. The elimination and the filtration can be done later on. Now, after we have number of ideas, let's say 50, 60 ideas to solve the problem that we have thought about, then comes the combining, filtration, and refining of ideas. Now, in this stage of ideation stage, we are going to eliminate those ideas which are not practical. Some ideas will work better when we will combine them together. Few ideas can work better after we have refined them. So, in this particular phase of ideation, we will do filtration, elimination, combining of ideas, and refining of ideas. And then we will start working on those ideas. So, as you know, the ideate stage is very, very crucial phase for generating innovative solutions and paving the way for subsequent stages of prototyping and testing. So we first do brainstorming. Now for brainstorming, there can be a lot of activities. You can do crazy 8, wherein you give a time. Let's say in 10 minutes, you have to come out with 8 solutions to solve the problem. You can do role play. You can do silent brainstorming. It works wonders. What you can do is you can ask the individuals to take half an hour, be silent, think about the problem, and try to find a solution. You can do visual thinking, where you can all sit together and, on a mind map, think together to solve the problems. You can do analogies and metaphors to solve the problems, that if and whys and whats. After you've brainstormed, you build on each other's ideas, you combine and refine the ideas. Remember, at this point, it is all about quantity. After you have the quantity, then you will, and there is no judgment at this point. You're not judging, oh, your idea is not good, oh, our idea is good. No, all the ideas are good, all the ideas are wonderful. So in this particular stage, you are going to capture the ideas, you are going to encourage wild ideas, but understand that there is a time constraint. It should not happen that this stage is going on and on and on. You should set yourself some time limit, so that you can start eliminating and filtering the ideas and then build upon each other's ideas. Remember, this is all about user centering. So keep that point in mind whenever you are ideating. The next stage is the prototype. Now we have our, after all elimination, filtration, let's say we got an idea that I want to solve the safety concern for people. And for that, I want to make, and excuse me, sorry. And for that, I want to make an app which will help the, can you just give me a minute? I'm so sorry. So suppose now that there is a prototype, you want to talk about the safety concerns for women and you want to make an app. So this is the stage where you are going to do the prototype. So you will select the promising idea and the one that has potential to address the problem that you had defined. So this is what happens in this phase. Select the promising idea, then you will start developing the prototype. Now prototype is prototype. You will have to think whether it's, suppose you are going to address the problem of overcrowding. So the prototype may include just the redesigning of the interior of the buses to maximize the space. Suppose you want to you want to develop a prototype to ensure safety. A prototype could be a security system or an emergency response plan. Now you can have multiple prototypes at this stage. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 prototypes, depending on what are, maybe you have 4 ideas and you want to develop prototypes for all. That's all fine. You can do that. Then comes the feedback. Now you have your low fidelity prototypes ready. That means the first draft of the prototype, whatever you are making, is ready. Okay, you have all your research done, you have everything done, and you say, okay, I want to make an app which will ring an alarm whenever there is a problem or a safety concern for a woman. So you have all the research done, you give this to your users, and you want their feedback. So they will give you their feedback, and then on the basis of the feedback, you can do iteration. In this stage, there are multiple iterations done. They will give you some feedback. They will say, oh, this is not what I like. I would not want to go to an app to press a button. I would want it on my phone as an emergency caller or something. So they will give you your feedback. You come back, you iterate on the prototype, you work on the prototype, you refine the prototype, you again give them to the user. The user will again give you your feedback. You can have multiple prototypes. Suppose two work, one doesn't work. So then you start working on only those two. Then you think, okay, this between these two, this one is not working, D is working fine. So that's how you keep refining, you keep coming back to it, keep iterating on it to understand the process. Once the prototyping is done, okay, you are after various rounds of user feedback, you are sure, okay, now my prototype is done. You do a high fidelity prototype. Now what is that? So prototype stage is a critical step, and it allows for practical testing and refinement of ideas before moving on to the full scale implementation. Now start a low fidelity prototype means, suppose you want to redesign the space in the bus for solving the problem of overcrowding. So you make a normal drawing, and you make a normal drawing and you share it with the user, and user says, okay, this is not a good way, good place for me to enter. I would not like to sit at the back. I would not like to sit on the floor. Who knows? So you just make a rough drawing, and on the basis of the user feedback, you keep improving it. And once your user feedback is done, it's finished, then you develop a proper architectural design of, or the interior design of that bus space to maximize the space to solve the problem of overcrowding. And that's called as high fidelity prototype. So you understand that this is a collaborative effort. And also you need to understand that it is a lot about storytelling. See, this at this stage, you are going back and forth with the user. So you need to be very good in telling the story of your vision to the user for them to give you the feedback. If you're not able to tell the user that, then how will you get an effective feedback? So the art of storytelling comes very handy. We have to keep it in mind that. Then cost and resources consideration. Of course, when we are talking of solving a problem, we have to understand what is the cost that we can use, that will be incurred to solve a problem in the way you want to solve, and the resources that you want. Maybe you don't have that kind of money and the resources, so you will have to design your prototype keeping in mind the cost and the resources that you have. Understand, this is at this stage, it is easier to fail fast, and it is better. You make a low fidelity prototype, it is rejected by the user, you go on to the other prototype. But if you have finalized your prototype and then you present it to the user, and the user says, oh, this is useless, then what are you going to do? You don't have anything else. You have wasted so much of time in developing a product which has no user feedback, which is not user friendly. So this stage gives you an idea, like which idea is good to go and which idea is not, because you are in constant touch with the users. You are taking their feedback, you are imbibing the feedback in your prototypes, and then you are developing it. Then comes the last stage, which is the testing stage. Now, in this stage, now that your prototype is ready, you conduct the usability test of the developed prototype. For example, the real world testing with the public transportation system, where commuters interact with the prototype or simulated version of the proposed solution. Like I told you, you're making an app. Now, after various feedback from the user, you have made your app, and now you are giving it for final testing. So you will keep it now, you will given it now the user base will increase. You will get a track of comments, suggestions, criticism, and you will make a note of all of that. The feedback of the final prototype will be taken into consideration. Once the feedback is collected, then it will be analyzed. Okay, what were the common themes? What were the areas where the prototypes have performed well or where they needed improvement? All of that will be analyzed. Then you will make some refinements, maybe minor adjustments will have to be made here and there to make your prototype functional, to make it user ready. The team may conduct multiple rounds of testing and refinement to ensure that the solution aligns with the needs of the user and expectations. And finally, once the prototype is validated by the user, you present it and the problem is solved. So this stage test is crucial for ensuring that solutions are effective, user-friendly, and aligned with the identified problems. We have to keep in mind the fact that the user experience evaluation is very, very important. Unless or until we get the evaluation from the user, the testing part is not complete. And there will be multiple testing rounds. Again, we have to keep in mind the cost and the resources. We have to keep in mind that the product or the solution or the service that we have created is user-friendly, is user-centric, and final validation and presentation, the problem will be solved. Now, let us understand, this is the, now that the process or the design thinking is understood by all, I would like to share with you this real life application of design thinking. Airbnb, most of us has heard about that, right? Now, design thinking technique helped transform this Airbnb company from a tough luck startup to a global $1 million business. Most of us, when we go out on vacation these days, we look up at the listings at Airbnb and we book our stays, right? But this was not the case few years back. When this company started, it had a lot of problems. There were a lot of issues. They were not getting. So I'll give you one example. What had happened was in one of the cities in New York, the subpar, there were few listings which were subpar and they were not getting picked up by the customers. When I say listing, I mean the property which are listed in the Airbnb app for customers to book. So there were few listings which were subpar and they were just not getting picked up by the customers. So the team decided to do design thinking, to take help from design thinking. They sat together, they did the empathizing stage, they ideated, they found out the pattern, and they realized that that's happening because these properties that are not getting picked up by the customers, their photographs are not good. Either they are blurry, or they have been taken from the sites, or they are not clicked well, or they are not showing the the property in a way it should be shown to the customers. So what did they do? They went to New York, they took a camera, they took a photographer, they got in touch with these people who had listed their properties on Airbnb. They got their properties clicked, they put it up on their website, and voila, within a week, this strategy helped them double or triple their revenues. And that's how. So this is just one of the example of how real life application of design thinking helps. Most of us Netflix these days, right? I'm sure. So Netflix started as a DVD rental by mail service in 1997. I had not heard about Netflix at that time. I was, I think, 2023 at that time, and I had not heard about it. And how did they become so successful? Well, all thanks to design thinking. Empathize. What happens is, empathize, they understood the problem. In mid-2000s, Netflix leadership recognized that the way people consumed the content was changing rapidly. You remember in those days, we used to get programs like Nooker, and all those programs used to come on TV. But they recognized and that the people are, the content that they want to see is changing. So they defined their problem statement. How might we transition from a DVD rental to a leading digital streaming platform while retaining and expanding our subscriber base? And then they understood that they can build that by refining their interface, by providing with various pricing modules, by giving the viewers different kind of content, by giving the users different kind of series that they want to watch. There was a time when on Netflix there were series which were long running series. I have watched like 8 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. But over a period of time, people don't have that much of time to invest in this today's fast pacing life in such series. So now what they have come up with? They have come up with limited series. So see, they are going, I told you that this design thinking process can go in circles. So they have understood, they now know, they again did the process of design thinking and understood that people are no longer liking long series. So they have come up with limited series. There are also options of liking a particular program that you're watching on Netflix. What's that? That's their way to get connected with the user. So Netflix also has been benefited a lot by design thinking. And see, there it is. I'm sure most of us would agree when I say this, that Netflix is the best digital streaming platform. Other platforms are not so user friendly. And of course, it gives the best content. So there are many companies that use design thinking in today's time. Have a look at it. Take 30 seconds to look at how many companies in today's time use design thinking. These are just a few. I've not given you all. These are just the few major companies that use design thinking. Now, I've been talking of companies using design thinking. You may wonder, why are we sitting here? We are all working in schools. We are all working with students, with learners. How is it beneficial to us? Well, like I said in the beginning, David Kelly understood that design thinking is not only limited to engineering. Design thinking is not only limited to companies or corporates. It is important for everyone to learn the process to approach a problem. See, there are problems in everybody's life, and if we train our students to approach a problem in a structured yet flexible way, they will be able to solve most of the problems that we have. Now, why design thinking in education? If we see education as a circle, then learner is obviously at the center of that circle. And there are four main things that we want from education. One is knowledge. Then we want them, of course, we want them to have knowledge. We want them to have information. We want them to know things and understand things. But the main things that we are concerned is with, we want them to develop skills. We want them to have character. We want them to be curious and motivate to learn, which is learning to learn, right? So if I focus on only these three things, skill, character, and learning to learn, let's see what's happening. What are the major skills that we want them to be developed? We want them to develop problem solving. Of course, design thinking does that. We want them to learn collaboration. Of course, design thinking helps in that because we are working in teams in design thinking. We collaborate at every point. We learn to listen. We learn to understand other people's perspective. We learn to be creative because no idea is good, no idea is bad, every idea is good. We are learning to be creative. So when we take a project with the students on design thinking, we are inherently teaching the students these skills. Then we want them to build character. We want them to we want them to be confident. We want them to be adaptable. We want them to be socially and culturally aware. That's all of this is done when a student or a learner undergoes design thinking process. Design thinking is all about empathy. Design thinking is all about understanding other people's perspective. Design thinking is all about adaptability, flexibility, understand various cultures, understand various social norms, understand various point of views. So design thinking will obviously help in developing the characters that we are looking for our learners in the coming century. Then next is learning to learn, or let's say motivation and curiosity. Obviously, when we are talking of design thinking, we are talking of uh, it's a curious process. It motivates the students to learn. It teaches the learners patience. It's a process. It teaches them that sometimes you have to go back and forth to solve a problem. A problem can be solved only when you reflect upon it. A problem can be solved when you are curious and motivated to solve it. So that is why design thinking is very, very important in education. These were the those were the overarching goals. If we see specifically, design thinking keeps the student in the center, because we're talking of students solving the problem. So it is student centered learning. Design thinking, the process helps the student to think critically, to be creative and innovative, because we're solving problems which are open ended, to be communicative, to collaborate, to work in teams. These are all 21st century skills, right? We are teaching the students that. Design thinking helps in developing the problem solving skill of students. It makes them empathetic. It develops that social quotient of being empathetic to people. It develops in them. That emotion of empathy is developed by this. They become more adaptable. It is also about interdisciplinary learning. Suppose I give my learners a project in design thinking in science. He will not only be doing science. In that process, he will also be doing a few questions of maths. He or she will be using the knowledge from other subjects to solve it. When they are communicating, that will be language. When they are interacting, that will be social, society. So interdisciplinary learning happens. Project based learning, design thinking is an extension of project based learning. It is all about inclusive education, and it is preparation for future challenges. I will just give you a few application of design thinking in science. For example, you want to teach design thinking to students of grade 4 or 5, and you give them the project. The objective is to teach them interdependence of species. So they have to design a mini ecosystem considering the needs of plants and animals. Just adding this line, they learn to empathize. So here it is. In mathematics, for grade 11 and 12, for big learners, for adult learners, they explore the concept through a hands-on project, and the activities, they're designing a game to teach concept like fractional geometry and algebra. When they have to design such game, obviously they will have to understand who are the potential players. They will have to empathize with their learning needs. They will have to define the game rules. They will have to ideate the game mechanics. They will have to do all these things, and then they have to prototype the game, test it with the classmates. They will learn so much with this one project that you are going to do with them. It's not only about science and maths. It can also work in a history class. Suppose you want to develop an understanding of historical perspective. So you want to create cards for significant events. Each card includes viewpoints of different individuals. So that will give the design thinking team the motivation to empathize with prospective various stakeholders in historical events, define the content, formation of cards, ideate multiple viewpoints, prototype the cards, and use them in the classroom discussions. And language, of course, we cannot leave behind that. Suppose you want to do character development for grade 9 to 12 students. What you can do is you can have students select a character from a book, create character development journey, include backstory, motivation, changes over time, and all this can be done through this process of design thinking, where they empathize with the character's experience, they define the character's attribute, they ideate on the character's development, they prototype the character's journey, and they present it to the class. So design thinking is a process which can be extensively used in the field of education, but with a word of caution. The first thing is you have to thoroughly understand the process before you introduce design thinking to the students. If you don't understand the process of the students, then students will not be able to understand anything, and there will be no takeaway. You have to be adequately prepared to conduct the session with the clarity on the activities that you will conduct. Design thinking can be time consuming, especially in today's time when we have so many things to do. And now we have to do design thinking also. But understand, you don't have to do design thinking for all concepts. Choose one concept which you will teach through design thinking. Plan it for the time that it takes, when you have time, and, plan the session well, ensures that your curriculum allows for it. You will have to also consider the skills that you want to assess, because this is a modern kind of assessment. So traditional skills you will not be testing. You will be testing the skills like problem solving, creativity, critical thinking. So you will have to have proper rubrics for that, and be sure that you have to align design thinking with your curriculum. Otherwise it is of no use. So remember, you don't have to use it for all the concepts that you teach, but you have to use it for what you can use it for. Think about it very, very carefully and then use it in your classes. I'm going to unshare the screen now, and I will open the floor for questions.